Okay, we are still graphing quadratics, but this time we have to answer all of these questions. So for number one, for part A, it says tell whether the graph is up or down. Will this be up like a cup or down like a frown? Up. And we know that because the value of the number in front of here is positive, so it's up like a cup. If it was negative, it would be down like a frown. Tell if the graph is going to be wide or narrow. If A is equal to 1, just say neither or neither, whatever you want to say. So what is the value of A? Since A is 1, it's neither wide or narrow, so we're just going to say neither. C, find the vertex. You already know how to do that. So how do we find the vertex again? Negative b over 2a. I'm going to have another sheet of paper to do my scrapwork on. Yeah, because you're not going to be able to fit everything on here. So, negative b over 2a, we're going to do negative 2 over 2 times 1 is just 2. So my vertex is at negative 1 comma something. And then how do I figure out what that something is? I'm going to plug it in. I'm going to have to graph this anyway, so I'm just going to go ahead and make my chart. So we'll plug in a negative 1. Now, let me ask you this question. When I plug this negative 1 in for that x squared, do I put parentheses around it or don't I? Remember what this means. This means take whatever x is and square it. So if x is negative 1, I want to do negative 1 times negative 1. How do I write that? Yes. It's never going to hurt you to put in parentheses. So you might as well, because yes, you do need parentheses here. If you write it without, it's something totally different. This means whatever x is, square it. The whole thing. X is all that. So I want to square all that. Plus 2 times negative 1 plus 4. So this is now a positive 1 minus 2 plus 4. So I get out a 3. So now I have the answer to part C, which is my vertex. The vertex is at negative 1 comma 3. Is everybody okay so far? All right. Now, D. It's asking for the axis of symmetry. We know how to draw it, but we haven't talked about writing its equation. So first, let me just backtrack a little bit. Let me plot my vertexes at negative 1 comma 3. And you guys know that the axis of symmetry is this dotted line that runs right through it. Well, what I'm asking for in part D is what's the equation of that line? Go ahead. Yes, x equals negative 1. It's a vertical line, right? And the vertical line is at negative 1. Your axis of symmetry will always be x equals whatever the x-coordinate of the vertex is. So if you can find the vertex, you have the axis of symmetry. You literally just write x equals whatever that number is. It's always the x value, right? X equals some number is a vertical line at that number. This is a vertical line at negative 1. If you write on the answer line, because your quiz is going to look very much like this, right? There's going to be an answer line for each of these letters. If for the answer line for D, you just write the number negative 1, that's wrong. That doesn't mean anything. That's not the equation of a line. X equals negative 1 is. So yes, it is that important that you write x equals for the axis of symmetry, because if you don't, it means nothing. Get what I'm saying? Okay, good, yes. That means it's not wide or narrow, it's just a regular graph. Because when we're saying it's wide, we're saying it's more wide than when A is 1, or it's less wide than when A is 1. So when A is 1, that's just regular. So that was back up here for tell if it's wide, narrow, or neither. Okay, so there's D. Now E, We talked about this briefly yesterday. Tell if the vertex is a maximum point or a minimum point. So, since this graph is up like a cup, right? The vertex is going to be here. Is that going to be a maximum point or a minimum point? Minimum in this case, because it's the lowest it ever gets. Does that make sense, everybody? So, it's going to be a min. Min is short for minimum, right? And F, give the Y-intercept.
Is the Y-intercept 3?
It's 4. It's always, well, how do you find a Y-intercept? The Y-intercept is where the graph crosses the Y-axis, right? X is always 0, right? Whenever a line crosses the Y-axis, wherever it happens, X is 0. So you just plug in a 0 for X, and what comes out? 4. So that's actually a free point on your graph. I didn't put it in my chart, but I can graph it right now, 0, 4, right? That's a point on my graph, so I can mirror that over. Sometimes the Y-axis, the Y-intercept is off my grid and it doesn't help me. But in this case, it's easy to find, so you might as well just throw it on there. And what's the last thing I have to do is finish the sketch of my graph. So I already have 3 points because I got to use my Y-intercept. So I just need one more point. What are my 2 options for the last number to plug in? 1 or, yeah, and what would you do? I would do 1. Oops. See if you got what I got. And then we're almost done. We just plot it and we'll be all set. Buy one, get one free. Connect your dots, nice smooth curve. And it's everything we thought it would be.